Welcome to Eagle News International Australia Oceania. I'm Diego Majonio from Gold Coast, Queensland, bringing you stories from Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. For the headlines, Victorian government announces roadmap for Metro Melbourne to COVID normal. New Zealand dissolves parliament amid COVID-19 resurgence. OFWs remain in Papua New Guinea in fear of losing jobs. New Year's Eve fireworks display in Sydney faces possible cancellation. Travel throwback. Big fan of catching flights eager for new adventures past lockdown. And Queenslanders welcome spring with Carnival of Flowers and Yurakuen in Toowoomba. After the sudden surge of COVID-19 cases in the state of Victoria in Australia, Stage 4 restrictions were implemented to regain control of the situation in Metro Melbourne. With the observed downtrend of coronavirus cases recently, the Melbourne government formulated their roadmap of strategies and easing restrictions to expedite the transition into normalcy, while still tackling the issue of eradicating coronavirus completely. Let's hear more details from Melbourne's Eagle News correspondent, Daryl Castillejos. Daryl?
The Victorian government has recently disclosed information regarding Metro Melbourne's ongoing journey towards COVID normal. A 4-step plan was introduced to the public, which includes new restrictions that will be in place after each step has met its certain goals. Here is what the roadmap to COVID normal looks like. On Sunday, September 6, a 2-week extension of lockdown in Melbourne was announced as the first step of the roadmap plan. Because of the downtrend in COVID cases, the government says that many of the current Stage 4 restrictions will need to remain in place in order to get to COVID normal. However, a few changes were made as part of the first step, which will take effect on September 14. The current curfew, which is 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., will then change to 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Traveling within 5 kilometers of your house is still the same, as is shopping for essentials where one person per household is allowed to go once a day. Another 1 hour is added for exercise or recreation, and 2 people or a household are allowed to meet outdoors. One nominated person can visit another household who lives alone or is a single parent with underage children. Restrictions on schools and childcare remains the same, as well as for restaurants and cafes. Metro Melbourne will be able to move to Step 2 after September 28, and when the average daily cases of 30 to 50 over a 14-day period is reached. Restrictions for the second step will then again have a few changes. This will include public gatherings where 5 people from 2 households are allowed to meet for social interactions. People will be allowed to leave home for 4 reasons: school or work, care or caregiving, shopping for essentials, and exercise. Childcare will also open after September 28, along with a staged return of face-to-face learning from prep to grade 2 and students in year 10 to 12 undertaking VCE or VCAL. Step 3 is in sight if the daily average cases in 14 days is less than 5 statewide or if there are less than 5 with unknown source. After October 26, there will be no restrictions when leaving home. Public gatherings are allowed up to 10 people, and 5 people from one household can visit another home. A potential staged return for on-site learning for grade 3 to year 10 will also happen, while retail shops will open except for personal care. The last step, which is current on November 23rd, will be in place if there are no new cases for 14 days. Restrictions on this time will include up to 50 people allowed for public gatherings and up to 20 visitors at a time in a home. All retails will open with safety measures in place, and schools will open for on-site learning. Hospitality will open for seated service only, while galleries, museums, and other entertainment venues will open with some restrictions. The road to COVID normal for Metro Melbourne is still subject to change as the government fights to control the virus. Despite the careful approach and restrictions being placed, the government believes that having a carefully laid out plan is essential and important in reaching our goal, which is for Melbourne to be COVID-free. Reporting from Melbourne, Australia, this is Daryl Castillejos, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Daryl, for detailing the situation there in Melbourne. Meanwhile, Following the resurgence of COVID-19 cases in New Zealand, the Parliament has finally come to a decision to dissolve. This is in line with the Parliament's virtue to limit gatherings to only 100 people. Amongst other decisions made by the government to counter coronavirus, the Parliament and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern have been working closely together to resolve the issue effectively and efficiently. More of this story from Eagle News correspondent Greg Besa in Wellington City. Greg?
After delaying the dissolution of Parliament for 2 times due to the re-emergence of COVID-19 community transmission in New Zealand, the 52nd Parliament finally came to an end on Sunday, 6th of September, which, with finality, paved the way for the conduct of the general election in this country on 17th of October. Due to a size limit in gathering of no more than 100 people under Alert Level 2, the dissolution ceremony was live-streamed on the Parliament's social platform website, which started at 11 o'clock in the morning. By virtue of the proclamation signed by the Governor-General of New Zealand, the 52nd Parliament was officially ended and thus stopped all its legislative functions. Yet, members of Parliament, including those appointed to cabinet positions, will remain until the new set of elected members are determined after the general election. The Governor-General also issued a writ directing the Chief Electoral Officer to hold a general election for the members of the House of Representatives of New Zealand, including those to be selected based on political party votes. It can be recalled that Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who has the sole authority to make the decision about the election date, delayed the polling from its original date on 19th September due to the emergence of COVID-19 community infection in the country. Nonetheless, she made it clear that she had no more intention to reschedule again the election, regardless of the status of the COVID-19 cases in the country. The postponement of the election was widely accepted by the general public, some of whom were members of the Filipino community.
Most of us would agree, especially New Zealanders, that COVID-19 is a national and a global crisis. So therefore, it is a legitimate reason for moving or changing the election date. It seems to me that by moving the election date, the health of our communities is the government's priority, while at the same time giving a fair shot of other candidates to campaign.
All things considered, I think the decision of the Prime Minister to move the elections to 17th October is fair and logical. First things first, let's isolate the virus and all other things will follow.
Among other legislative accomplishments in the last 3 years, the 52nd Parliament can be notably remembered on how it responded to the challenges brought about by COVID-19. Other than this, the Parliament can also be remembered on how it was brought closer to the people, as envisioned by its Speaker, the Right Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Yeah, I want New Zealanders to come and see their Parliament at work. I want them on the grounds. I want them intermingling with members of Parliament as much as possible. Quite the opposite to what occurs in some countries where you get quite big barriers around the Parliament. So,
on the other hand, the 52nd Parliament was worth remembering for Filipinos, as they took pride of the inclusion of Paulo Garcia, the first member of Parliament of Filipino descent. From Parliament grounds in Wellington City, this is Greg Besa of EBC New Zealand Bureau. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Greg, for sharing the latest in New Zealand. The overstaying coronavirus, which has shut off international travels, poses more than a medical threat to overseas workers, but also presents financial and employment challenges. The overseas Filipino workers in Papua New Guinea face a predicament concerning repatriation flights. Recognizing the risk of using their leave entitlement may lead to the possibility of losing their jobs. Our correspondent, Echo Horleza Quinola from Port Moresby, shares the full story. Echo?
We used to hear, have a safe flight, safe travels, or may your journey be free from stress and bring you home safely. How we loved hearing these remarks whenever there is someone traveling. But does traveling make us excited today, now that the overstaying coronavirus hinders us from flying back home to the Philippines or to other desired destinations?
Due to this global health crisis, COVID-19, we are deterred to travel freely. International flights in Papua New Guinea are not yet back to their regular operations. Travel requirements, restrictions, policies, and flight cancellations are among the various problems we face when we want to travel by air. Filipinos here in Papua New Guinea were not spared with these international flights predicaments. Though a repatriation flight was granted last month, many of our kababayans long to fly back home to make use of their annual leave or holiday vacation. But an agonizing feeling hinders them to pursue the use of their entitlement or leave privileges. They have fears of not having the chance to return to Papua New Guinea once the coronavirus situation worsens. For those who are employed with fixed-term contracts and those so-called holding permanent positions in their jobs, they practically prefer to just stay in the country and not take the risk. According to them, they still can bear loneliness rather than being unemployed or jobless.
It's actually both lonely and sad, because lonely, I'm just alone here in PNG. Although I have my friends with me, it's different kasi when you're with your family. Sad because you can only talk to them through video call, you cannot hug them, you cannot do the personal interactions with them. But basically, yun yung nararamdaman. I think lahat naman ng OFW dito sa PNG, yun yung nararamdaman. Especially those ones na hindi kasama yung family nila. They feel lonely and sad at this pandemic. I don't think na kaya kong umuwi for this year and for the next year. So I would rather stay.
Ang kailangan isipin ng bawat isang manggagawa na nasa abroad, kung may trabaho pa rin o wala. Yung may mga trabaho at nabawasan ng mga oras o mga araw na pagpasok nyo, mas maigi kayong merong at least may income pa rin kayo. Rather than uwi ka ng Pilipinas, dadagdag ka lang sa problema doon sa ating bansa. Doon, walang trabaho, lahat. Makikita naman ninyo sa news kung paano yung ano. And as far as Port Moresby is concerned, we are much in a better position during these pandemic times, because we can go to any grocery stores or what without much observing the strict protocol that the government of the Philippines is implementing there. As far as if I am in their shoes, I would rather stay in Port Moresby than go home in the Philippines.
Air Niugini, the national airline of Papua New Guinea, will continue to operate in a safe and compliant manner, adhering to the advice of the government in order to mitigate the risk of coronavirus spread. Reporting from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Echo. We hope the situation improves for all workers there. After the break, we will hear stories of the New Year's Eve fireworks display in Sydney facing a possible cancellation. Plus, a big fan of catching flights shares his travel throwback, eager for new adventures after the lockdown. And Queenslanders welcome the spring season with the Carnival of Flowers and Udakuen in Toowoomba. All these when Eagle News International Australia Oceania returns. Please stay tuned.
The New Era University, in its 45th year of excellence, discipline, and service to humanity, will offer online education all levels beginning this first semester academic year 2020 to 2021 through the NEU Virtual Learning Environment, or NEU VLE. New Era University offers a complete basic education cycle from kindergarten up to senior high school, offering all strands. NEU has 18 colleges, and 2 graduate schools. It also offers ALS and ETF. Best of all, NEU has the most affordable tuition fees among private universities in the Philippines. NEU is at Quezon City, the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, General Santos City, South Cotabato, Lipa City, Batangas, and Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
New Era University is under the stewardship of Dr. Dilo L. Rosas.
What are you waiting for? Be part of the new normal. Enroll now. Classes start on October 5, 2020.
Hello, my name is Robin and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside. And I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor. Or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Basta't nandyan ka, may pag-asa, dahan-dahan sa
Kailangan nating talunin tong pandemic na to.
Kailangan lumaban eh. Kailangan may gawin.
I'm not going to be part of that 40% that will not survive, and that's it.
muling susulong, pwede pang mangarap.
There's still a drop of life, then I'm gonna hold on to that and I'm gonna keep it alive.
Even just buying one mask na 35 pesos, it's like we dance for joy.
Kung nag-umpisa ka na, sana may bumili ng tinda ko, parang back to basic ako.
Doon mo ma-feel na, okay, may pag-asa pala.
For the sake of the Filipinos, we just have to give it a fight, di ba?
Pwede pang
Welcome back. I am Diego Madronio and you're watching Eagle News International Australia Oceania. With only 4 months left in 2020 and many days spent in quarantine at home, the promise of big social events sounds undeniably alluring. Thus, the possible cancellation of Sydney's most sought-after New Year's celebration has left many disappointed, despite it being a necessary safety precaution. Regardless, many families have started planning alternatives to celebrate the passing of the year in a safer, more practical and sensible manner. From Sydney, here's Eagle News correspondent Armelyn Martin for the story. Armelyn?
4 months to go and 2020 will soon be over. As the new year is fast approaching, Sydney New Year's Eve world-famous display of fireworks may be cancelled due to COVID-19 concerns, essentially to avoid bringing large crowds where social distancing would be rather difficult to implement.
Each year, around 1 million people gather at the Sydney Harbour to witness the iconic display of fireworks. But due to the ongoing pandemic, such a celebration may be cancelled as we enter the new year. Sydney New Year's Eve is an annual event held every New Year's Eve in Sydney, Australia, on the beautiful Sydney Harbour. It is a global event loved by many locals and international visitors, being recognised as one of the best in the world. It offers an evening of unforgettable experiences, entertainment, Aboriginal ceremonies, and the grand finale of breathtaking fireworks.
Though it may cause disappointment to many, the cancellation of the big event is the most sensible thing to do to avoid large gatherings and keep everyone safe. Similarly, Harbourside Food and Entertainment Centre, usually hosting the weekly Saturday at Harbourside fireworks, have already been cancelled for the foreseeable future for the safety of the community.
Yeah, I think that this year the fireworks should be cancelled due to all the problems arising with coronavirus and the mandatory social distancing. And as tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people in attendance, the possibility of there being new cases is very
It's really different because Sydney's well known for its fireworks in the city as well as just in all the other parks and stuff, and a bunch of families go out to watch them. But I do think it's necessary to cancel them because of all the corona concerns.
As a result of the New Year's Eve fireworks possibly being cancelled, families are preparing alternatives to celebrate. Many families and friends have planned small gatherings in the comfort of their own homes to celebrate this memorable event. However, taking into consideration the New South Wales government rules implemented for COVID-19, a maximum of only 20 people being permitted to gather at households as well as outdoor gatherings. Unfortunately, any form of big party or celebration for the new year can only be minimal, but that will not stop Aussies from spending an enjoyable time with their loved ones.
Yeah. This is a tricky question. How are we gonna? Well, the kids gonna be expecting fireworks and all, but we just have to tell them what's happening. Just be honest with them and tell them there'll be no fireworks.
The traditional New Year's Eve celebrations may be possibly cancelled as we close 2020. But one thing we can definitely guarantee is that although welcoming the new year seems different than before, people remain to look forward for better days in the year 2021. From Sydney, Australia, Armelin Martin, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thanks for that, Armelin. The onset of COVID-19 restrictions have locked travelers to their doors. Since international journeys have been suspended, many travel plans were left postponed, even cancelled. Travel bugs can't wait for their next adventure, but with lockdowns still in place, they content themselves by unlocking their phones and scrolling through tons of memories of previous travels, reminiscing their past wanderlust. Here's a story from our Melbourne correspondent, Dwight Baloloy, as he takes us to his previous tour in Korea's city of Seoul during winter last year. Go ahead, Dwight.
Since the lockdown here in Melbourne had been extended until September 28, all we can do is wait until we can all go out again and travel. So I've been looking through all my travel videos and photos from my trip in South Korea with my sister back in January earlier this year. So come and I will show you our journey in the city of Seoul. The city of Seoul in South Korea is indeed one of the most busiest cities in the world, cultivating modern skyscrapers, advanced and high level of technology, and its profound respect to its traditional culture. Seoul is also visited by millions of tourists worldwide and is the home of the global phenomenon K-pop and K-drama. Some of the most famous attractions in Seoul are the Gyeongbokgung Palace, Namsan Seoul Tower, Cheongyecheon Stream, the shopping precinct of Myeongdong, and many more tourist spots that can be visited by tourists. There are tons of food precincts, restaurants that offer the ever-famous Korean barbecue, and traditional market in Seoul that people can dine in and enjoy each other's company. To ensure that you bring warm clothing that could warm you when you visit South Korea during winter season because of its freezing and freezing conditions. Once travel restrictions are eased and we can all travel again, I'm sure Seoul, South Korea is one of the places I will visit again. This is Dwight Albert Paloloy from Melbourne, Australia. We live in interesting times.
Thanks for that wonderful tour, Dwight. Time flies indeed when you're having so much fun. For our next story, the idea of spending quality time with the family has become somewhat of a rare occurrence during the pandemic season. Lucky are those in Toowoomba, Queensland, Australia. Many attractions are now open, enticing those seeking out the great outdoors. The Carnival of Flowers and the Japanese Garden are some places that people can check out, of course ensuring COVID-19 safety. Here's Raylene Rose Javier, our Brisbane correspondent, to share the story. Raylene?
Join us as we explore the Carnival of Flowers and the Japanese Garden in Toowoomba, Queensland, Australia. Due to the current pandemic, spending family time outdoors is now considered a rare chance. Given that it is safe for everyone, people will grab every chance that they can get to spend some quality time outdoors.
Here in Queensland, Australia, the Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers is something that should be experienced by those who love the smell of fresh flowers on a fine spring day. This event is the only longest floral event in Australia. Spread across 25 hectares, a spectacular array of bright flower beds, large canopies of stately trees, and acres of expansive green lawns is to be enjoyed by not only you and your family, but also your furry friends, as the 2020 Carnival of Flowers have now introduced a dog-friendly program dedicated to hounds and their humans. Also located here in Toowoomba, the Japanese garden Juraku-en is also known for its spectacular vision of a traditional Japanese garden. This 3-hectare setting is one of Australia's largest and most traditionally designed Japanese garden strolls. Within this breathtaking location lays over 200 species of Japanese and Australian native trees, a central lake, 3 kilometers of paths, and many more magnificent sights. Although with the strict requirements of the government in regards to COVID-19, the 2020 Carnival of Flowers have not announced the continuation of the Grand Central Floral Parade. Despite that, all are still welcome to enjoy the ambience of the great outdoors. As for the Japanese garden, the maintenance of social distancing is required.
From Brisbane, Australia, this is Raylene Rose Javier, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Raylene. Truly breathtaking places we'd all love to visit. Many thanks to all of you for watching Eagle News International Australia Oceania. Join us again next time for more stories from our bureaus across Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. Visit our websites on eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on twitter.com/eaglenews and on facebook.com/eaglenews. Stay safe, stay strong, and take care, everyone. From Gold Coast, Australia, I'm Diego Madronio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.